All right. Seed talk, stuff to make your seeds walk. We back. Coming back, talking about a couple topics, since we ain't been here for a minute. I think last episode we talked about the Lori Harvey and Michael B. Jordan and that whole situation of marriage in the black community. And today, we want to talk about Juneteenth first. It's a simple question. What now? Let's tag some people, get them in the room, because there's people saying, oh man, it's just a celebratory, holiday. So what? We're not really free, Thanks for the holiday, but we could use something else like reparations, of course. So I want to talk about that. Like, what now? Now we got this holiday. People took the day off. They went to a couple festivals and whatnot. They're performing at these festivals. They're, vending at these, festivals. Now what? Now what? I want to hear from the panel. Do y'all think that we're actually free? Are we free now? I know it might be a little bit of a complicated question. It's not a trick question. I just want to know what y'all think. And then I want to talk about what is this Roe versus Wade reversal. Am I saying it right? Is that the right language? The reversal. What does that mean for the black community?
I call it a repeal.
Repeal. Okay. And I want, I'm gonna have our distinguished panelists, describe it, what I'm saying, because they can articulate themselves better than I can on that tip. But let's just start tagging some people, get them in the room and whatnot, and let's just start, talking about this whole Juneteenth thing. How many of y'all went out to celebrate it? Went out and did something for Juneteenth, and what did you do?
Unfortunately, I was working on those days. However, they did have a live one, and see, also kind of turned it out because we had 5 of them in different cities, surrounding cities. So a lot of it they did actually view live, and it looked like it was very entertaining. I'm trying to get the dates for next year. That way, I could take off and actually attend, even in this hot ass Texas weather. I may try to attend. They looked pretty good. I think the Juneteenth, when you ask, do we have freedom? It all depends what you consider freedom for us. Are you indicating we got freedom to, how you put it, to exercise certain privileges or whatever? I'm not sure exactly where we're going with this. I mean, I guess we're free in terms of we ain't necessarily chained to nothing, at least not yet. But in terms of privileges, I think that's where we still seeing some issues there. I guess in terms of privileges compared to our counterparts. Let's call them that, counterparts.
Right.
But Juneteenth, I think, is pretty good. I know I talked to my brother about this, and he made some very interesting comments. And y'all can chime in on what he said. He said, I didn't agree with him, but me and my oldest brother didn't agree with, but he was saying he didn't like how Father's Day and Juneteenth was in the same month along with Pride Month. And of course, me and my brother said to, well, June 19th, that's the actual day of Juneteenth. You can't really change that. And Father's Day is always the third, I believe it was the third Sunday of every month. So you can't really change the day. It's whatever day that is. I said Juneteenth, the Father's Day, it just so happened to coincidentally fall on that day. So I was like, well, I don't know any other month he feels that all that overshadowed Juneteenth. I personally disagree. I think Juneteenth, in my opinion, got plenty of recognition, at least where I'm at, it did. So do y'all think that with Pride Month and Father's Day be on the same day, you think it took away from Juneteenth? I don't personally think it did. I thought, at least for me, again, I think we was able to celebrate all 3 of those equally and distributed the energy quite well. But I'm not sure how everybody else feel about that. But that was his personal opinion.
That's a good question. What y'all think?
First, I'll share what I did on Juneteenth, and then I'll answer that. So on Juneteenth, several of my relatives and we got together and we did a very long Zoom call in which we read passages from this book called House of Bondage from Octavia Rogers, and it's a first-person slave narrative. And we went through our family tree and discussed the experiences of our enslaved ancestors. And we did that for a couple of hours, and that was several of us throughout the country. So we didn't go out, but we stayed in, and we decided to be intentional on focusing on enslaved ancestors, and in particular, the ones that were emancipated. And that was a conscious decision because we thought that freedom shouldn't just be about the freedom to participate in capitalism as just fueling purchasing other things, that we needed to focus inward and remember what it's about. And because, of course, it fell on Father's Day, we tried to concentrate on the male, the ones that were fathers and enslaved. So I don't think that having it in the month of June and other holidays falling on that day, I don't think that really takes away from it, because it only happened once every 6 or 7 years with leap year. So it happens. It's like when someone's born on a day that's a holiday. It doesn't take away from what the holidays meant to celebrate.
Okay, yeah. When someone asks, like, does it overshadow? Is Juneteenth overshadowed by Pride Month and Father's Day? It makes the assumption that Black people can't multitask.
Exactly, and it's so weird. I was like, you can celebrate more than one thing. Like hell. Like, what's a good example? Like Mother's Day and Memorial Day in the same month, but you're still celebrating those two. Like, what's stopping you? Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all that is in the same month. Nobody have no issues trying to celebrate. So Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, hell, Black Friday, the last time we did have one, all in the same month. Nobody had no problem with it. God damn.
I think we know what it is, man. I think that, there's a lot of people in our community that think that LGBTQIA rights are overshadow, saying the rights of Black people, and that they put sexuality before race, sexuality, gender, and how you identify and whatnot above race. And
they got 2 months. I didn't know they had 2 months.
I don't think his point is terrible. I think that if it's not overshadowed, a lot of Black people's responses to corporate celebration of Juneteenth is that it's not genuine anyways. So if we're not talking about Black people and we're talking about the celebration of Juneteenth at large, I don't know that Black Americans appreciate the other cultures celebrating the holiday anyways, because if it's done commercially, it's going to be criticized. But the LGBTQ community, their celebrations are almost all corporate and mostly looks like pandering in a lot of ways. So I don't even know if we would celebrate that. I honestly don't know if that would be a good thing. I'm not sure Black people would appreciate that in the end. So I have mixed emotions on the point that he's making. Because on one hand, it's true that the corporations do seem to focus on the LGBTQ folks more, I guess, than the Juneteenth portion of the month, or I guess portion of the concept. But at the same time, I just don't know that we would appreciate it if the corporate pandering was focused on us. So I think that's a 50-50 that I'm not really sure how that really goes. And then my work asked me to speak on Juneteenth, like for the district attorney's office, which was really weird because I didn't know they wrapped it in with Black Lives Matter, which was such a weird question for me. I was like, why Black Lives Matter right now? And they're like, for Juneteenth. And I was like, okay, I guess. So that happened, which was cool in one way because I felt like my office was trying to show like, oh, we have attorneys with this belief system. But then on the other side, I felt like it was the same corporate pandering that I was talking about. So I've seen both sides of that coin. And that's why I responded to your brother the way that I did.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a pretty thorough answer. I appreciate that. I just think that, we get so stuck in these binary you know what I'm saying, this binary logic and resolutions when it comes to living in America. I don't understand why when we talk about LGBTQIA, we can't be talking about creating opportunities for them to share their voice and share their story, because we know historically throughout the years, their story has been muted or been suppressed, or people have been hurt, you know what I'm saying, when they try to share their story, or just ignored, you know what I mean, and left invisible. So I don't understand why, I don't understand why it's so difficult for us to look at Pride Month as an opportunity to do things to allow opportunities for people in the LGBTQIA community to really like step up and have like leadership opportunities that has been denied, because it's usually been, you know what I'm saying, overpopulated, you know what I'm saying, with, you know, cisgender, you know what I'm saying, straight Black men, you know. And that's just, I don't understand like why we always fight that, but I do understand. So let's not be disingenuous, let's not gaslight. You know, a lot of us in our community, we tolerate, you know, people in the Black people in the LGBTQIA community. We just tolerate them. And most of them are anti-gay, anti-trans. And we just need to say, yeah, I have a problem with that. And you need to get help. But we don't want to do that, because then you'd be called a bigot and, you know, you're hateful and stuff like that. But it's better to like embrace it and be like, I need some help, I need support, rather than always bringing up these disingenuous gaslighting questions like, don't you think that Juneteenth is being overshadowed by Pride Month? And why would Father's Day be a problem in the same month as, you know what I'm saying, Juneteenth? Like, we can't figure out how to, you know, wrap these up in one thing where we're creating narratives, we're creating opportunities and safe places for us to love each other, no matter what the heck we're celebrating, whether it's Pride Month, whether it's Father's Day, whether it's Juneteenth. We can't multitask where our main objective, no matter what it is, whatever the celebration is, whatever the recognition is, even if it's a wedding, you know what I mean? Even if it's the griot party experience, we're so limited in our capacity that we just can't focus on creating safe places for people to feel, heal, build, and grow and and for us to love each other. I find that to be really interesting, especially it's a time that some of our jobs is actually saying you don't even have to show up to the plantation. So why not use that time, you know what I'm saying, to, you know, say, no, I'm going to spend time in the community, even within my family, who has fathers in there, people from the LGBTQIA community, people who are pro-Black, who are, you know, Muslim, who are Christian and all that. Just like Precious said, like we do during the holiday season. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there during that time.
Oh, damn lot. And we ain't missing a beat now one time. So I'm not saying we can't do all three.
Yeah,
we can't do all three.
I just think it's us being, you know, too many of us in our community being disingenuous and gaslighting us with these certain questions, like just to even bring it up.
And I'll say this, like, let's just say they're not open to celebrating Pride Month. Why don't you pull out and enter into Juneteenth and focus on Juneteenth then, if it was that important? But it seems like they don't tend to do that. They still focus on other holiday that's conflicting with what they're doing. But if that's where your heart really set at, then do that then. Like what I do, or what someone else that should not conflict or disrupt what you're trying to do. This is the way I look at it.
Keandre said, is there a problem with just tolerating it? I don't know. You tell me. Tell me about the times you've been in a room with white folks. Tell me about a time you've been in a room with anybody, a group of Black men, and you wanted to be accepted and you wanted to share your story. And they're like, no, we're just going to tolerate you. I don't know. You tell me if it was a problem or not. Maybe it's not a problem for you. It doesn't feel good. I know it doesn't when someone just tolerates me. If I was on this panel, you know, and people were just like, we're just going to tolerate logic. I don't know if the word problem would be the word, but it would not feel good just to be tolerated. Like I'm just a piece. I mean, like, just forget the point that I started talking, like y'all asked me to be on the show and then I'm just, you know, I'm just a fixture, you know what I mean? Just to take up space and you're just tolerating everything I say. It's not like you're putting into any consideration into it. You're not putting any merit into it. You're not placing a high value, or premium on it. It's just, we're just tolerating you. It wouldn't feel good. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Well, we all know the saying, go where you're welcome, not where you're tolerated. So with that being said, tolerated, you asked a good question. I would be fair with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, tolerated. Yeah, that sounds like you're a pest or something.
Yeah.
And you're not welcome.
I would not equate, I don't think anyone on this panel, I'll let y'all speak for yourself. I would not equate being respected with being tolerated. I think they're diametrically opposed to each other. I don't respect.
Oh, no. When somebody tolerates you, they can't stand your ass.
And even saying you'd rather be respected, respect has a cultural component to it, and that definition can vary. So what one person ascribes as being respected, another person can say, well, you're disrespecting me, versus tolerating someone kind of has a universal, you don't really want them to be there. You're not respecting their humanity, but it's like, oh, well, I have to put up with you. So there's still a difference. And I guess we can't all decide if others should accept being tolerated or not. We should try and embrace people, particularly if they're one of us, like if they are Black and in these other groups, we should try and embrace them because we're all still Black and we're all still family versus just tolerating one another.
I think tolerance is always the minimum standard of conduct that's allowed. So like if all I can think of are examples to try to take it away from this very specific one that people have strong feelings about. So my instinct is to make the comparison to the freshmen in high school, their first couple of weeks. Like nobody likes the freshmen, but you can't beat them up because if you beat them up, you'll get in trouble. But you're also not going to tell them how to get to the places they need to go. That is the minimum standard of conduct. It won't get you in trouble, but you're also not doing anything to help them. Do I think that that's a problem? I think that if you're just talking about yourself on a personal level, we can probably get away with tolerance. But culturally, I think that the problem is when we set tolerance as the minimum standard of conduct, when we fall short of it, it almost always ends up in violence. Because that's like saying, we won't hit them. That's the bottom line. We just won't hit them. And then someone hits them because they fall short of that. And that's generally what happens. Wherever you set the standard, when people fall short of it, you want to make sure nobody's still harmed at that point. And so that would be my response to that. So like I said, if personally you want to be tolerant, okay. But do I think that that's culturally something that we should set as a goal? Absolutely not, because the injury rate and the risk rate is too high, because we know people will not always meet the standard. People be below code sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with that. So great examples that you used, and that was great that you piggyback what Doc had already said, that which was good. So it's like it played off each other. And I don't understand why we can't use Juneteenth and Pride Month to really practice these things that we really need to work on. Like the fact that you're asking a question, is it okay or is there a problem to tolerate someone, as opposed to, is it a problem not loving someone who looks like you and has a shared experience? That I think that's tough. That's very complicated. And I wonder why some people in our community, and I always say wonder because I'm trying to be sarcastic, I wonder why they embrace it like that. Like, is there a problem not loving them? That's the real question. Mm-hmm. Because if I settled it on, no, you're good, by just tolerating them, it's not a problem, you wouldn't take it, like Bobby said, you wouldn't take it any further than that. You would never get to the point where you actually love them, which is my definition of seeing yourself in someone else and serving the you and them. You have no aspiration, no goal, no destination to achieve, because what you're doing is you just want to get at tolerating. Your goal is not to love them. Mm-hmm. Your goal is not to protect them. Your goal is not to give them leadership opportunities. Your goal is not to support their success. Your goal is not to even hear their story. Your goal is just to tolerate. So I don't know why Juneteenth. Let me put it this way. What if we celebrated Father's Day? Because I know a lot of Black fathers feel this way. And it's just the bare minimum was just to tolerate them. Just tolerate Black fathers in all their BS, in all them being trifling, all them and their babies' moms, them being ashy. Don't try to love them. Don't try to recognize and celebrate them on Father's Day. Just tolerate them. Like, it's your day, dude. You really don't do much. You're ashy most of the time. This is what we hear constantly. This is like pop media fast food culture on your timeline. You know what I'm saying? We got a lot of Black women saying, you know what I'm saying, Father's Day really is, celebrate me for Father's Day because I've been taking care of the child. I don't know what a father is.
Mm-hmm.
We get that all the time. And then we get people saying, we get fathers that come out of the woodwork, man, don't start that crap this Father's Day. Don't just tolerate us. Don't say, come on here, you being a mother. It's Father's Day for you. No, don't do that.
The day before Father's Day. The day before Father's Day post is my favorite.
But it's funny that he brought that up and that we can actually transition to this actual point, because I do think that we need to get to the point where we don't always blame Black fathers, you know what I'm saying, who are doing their job for the fathers who ain't doing their job, because they just tolerate it. And it's the same thing with the LGBTQIA community. It's like, you got that. And the problem is you ain't even trying to even go out of your way to embrace and love people in the LGBTQIA community. You're not even trying to do it. It's not like it's a homework assignment. You know what I'm saying? You're like, no, I'll just get an F on that assignment. I ain't even trying to do that. I ain't even trying to do that. But that's how some people feel about Black fathers. Man, why I got to go out of my way to try to, recognize and celebrate him? It's, the father of my children has been a straight up ass. I'm not going out of my way. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think we need to take this time to, figure out how we can love each other, better. And if we don't think that we all can work on that, I think we're mistaken.
Absolutely, I agree.
But I definitely appreciate Keandre, putting himself out there, asking the question, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's many of them who got the same question or feel the same kind of way, especially when it comes to the LGBT community.
Because we start to look, so like when he asked the question, do we embrace Black atheists? Like, we start going down this rabbit hole, like by title alone, we should only tolerate this certain Black person. You know what I'm saying? But we got people helping people who have been convicted of heinous crimes in the prison system. We make sure that they get their rights. And I'm like, if they're Black and, you know what I'm saying, you might not agree with what they've done. Like, even, here's another example, gang members. You know what I mean? People who are in street gangs. Like, too many times they're really glorified. I mean, Tukey Williams is a perfect example. That man was glorified. I mean, he killed some people, but then we praised him some of us praised him for making children's books. And we're going into his defense saying he shouldn't have been killed by the state of Florida. There were some people who just didn't tolerate Tukey Williams. They loved that man. And I'm like, what about the families who lost their family members because of Tukey Williams? That situation always blows my mind, that we always got room, you know what I'm saying, for people who uphold the patriarch and do violent, hurtful things, but we don't have any room, you know what I'm saying, to embrace people in the LGBTQIA community who have not done anything to kill anyone or hurt anyone. And I think we just want to tolerate them, but we love Tukey Williams.
Because like we said before, we are addicted to trauma porn, honey. That is what it is. That's the only sense I got, because I said the same thing. Like, to this day, I never understood why Black people put Scarface. And I mean by Scarface, I ain't talking about the rapper. I'm talking about what's that dude's name? Tony Montana. That dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, him. I would never understand how black people put this man on such a high pedestal. I'm like, why y'all embracing this man? This man was a drug dealer. What's wrong with y'all? I remember they had a whole segment on BET. I'm not sure if y'all remember. It was years back. And they made a whole segment about how Scarface inspired them. I'm like, how the hell this fool inspiring you? It was so weird.
A lot of these people represent.
God damn.
They represent the American dream, and that it is to accumulate as much resources or physical things, material resources as possible, making it from the mud. And I mean, this is why we have way more rappers who name themselves after drug dealers who have contributed to the destruction of the black community than we have of, black people naming themselves after, at least in pop culture, naming themselves after black people who have actually uplifted the community. But I remember a very popular group in the 90s and early 2000s called Capone and Noriega. Of course, we got Scarface, you know what I'm saying? I mean, we got Nas Escobar, you know what I mean? I can keep going on and on and on.
Or we got our TV shows. We got Power. We got Snowfall. Whatever.
Yeah, which I thoroughly enjoy.
It's all the same.
Like, I don't think we just tolerate them. You know what I mean? We celebrate them. For a matter of fact, when those shows come on and they have one gay person, and I've seen people say, "Hey, man, turn this stuff off."
Yes, like one gay person just like people been talking about that P Valley show. I haven't personally watched it, but so many people are like up in arms. I'm like, what are y'all complaining about? I guess one of them, it was attractive, and he engaged in sex with a same-sex partner. I'm like, okay.
It's pretty soapy. It's pretty sudsy, but it's pretty good. I watched the first couple seasons. I'm gonna have to tap in. I gotta renew my subscription though. But but yeah, I like it. I think it's a good show. I do. I think it's good.
Maybe I'll tune it. Maybe I will.
Here's the deal. Why everything gotta be so
horrible accents? You're not gonna like the accents, Precious. They have horrible Southern accents to the point it hurts my ear.
But listen, why has everything got to be so deep? Sometimes I would just want, to view things for its junk food, nutritional value, man. Ain't everything got to all be nutritional for me.
Everything ain't got to be woke. Okay, everything gotta be woke. You can go to sleep sometime or be on the snooze. Okay,
exactly. Or daydream shit.
Yeah, daydream. Like cut it out. Y'all not even woke in real life. Y'all some zombies in real life. Cut the shit. Y'all ain't like that in real life.
So we went through the whole thing of is Juneteenth overshadowed by Pride Month and then Father's Day. Absolutely. So I want to get to the last one before we get to Roe versus Wade, where the other panelists are way more educated on this than me and can articulate that repeal. But what now after Juneteenth holiday? I think we kind of touched on it a little bit. And is we free, Massa? Because Doc said that we'll be tripping over each other to forgive a white person, but we can't do it to us.
Forgive them and invite them to the cookout and his whole family.
And frankly, I would be a full Karen, call the police on it, have it shut down. No, I would shut it down. No, they shouldn't be invited.
You revoking invitations? Okay,
I sure am. I sure will. I'll be Suge Knight at the door. Give me your stuff.
So in all seriousness, and this is not a trick question or anything. Are we free? Are we free? When there's books, when there's laws still in the books and the Constitution says we 3/5 of human beings. When they won't let us teach certain, curriculum that basically articulates how racism is institutionalized. You know what I'm saying? They're making moves to do that. Are we really free?
Well, let's look up the definition of free. Free means not under the control or in the power of another, able to act or be done as one wishes.
Hmm. You
Or
had a
not, or no longer confined or imprisoned.
yeah. I mean, I like Webster dictionary definitions only to a certain extent because I like to look at other definitions too. But that one, I like that one. That one works too. So we free
So
because we ain't got shackles on us no more, or do we? Are there financial shackles?
perhaps up here, shackles. That's why we keep want to keep forgive them every damn time they do some BS they know full well they shouldn't have done. We probably shackled up here.
But what really gives you your freedom in a country where institutions are an institution took away your freedom? What gives you your freedom if an institution took away your freedom? And I would argue it's more it was be to have your own institutions. And in that regard, we are not free. We don't have our own institutions to provide certain kinds of freedoms and to 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 make certain situations equitable, whether it's justice in the legal system, whether it's to turn around the amount of black people that go to prison, you know what I'm saying, to turn around or reverse the statistic of us dying a lot sooner than our white counterparts. I can keep going on and on and on. Do we have any kind of institutions to correct that? Provide our own food for ourselves, which leads, because we keep eating their foods, which leads to poor health issues. Like, I would argue that we're really not free if we don't have institutions to really reverse, and fight on our behalf.
I think freedom, at least in our economy, comes down to whether you have some sort of extraordinary ability. There's people like, one of the things I can't stand about Kanye, but this is one point that he always makes, is that you can't touch him. Like he has control over his own labor, like to an extent that he doesn't need anybody else to make money. He wants you to know that. So, like, is Kanye free? Kanye's about as close as it gets for black folks. Is LeBron free? Probably as close as he's going to get for black folks. But what is he free from? Because when I talk about freedom, I talk about freedom from certain things. So, I mean, are you free from being followed in the store? You're not. Are you free from knowing that if you do make a mistake, you'll be punished more harshly? You're not. Are you free from telling your children that a traffic stop could end up killing you? You're not. Are you free from applying for a loan for your mortgage and knowing for a fact that you got declined simply because you couldn't afford the loan? You're not free from that, because we have studies that come out every year that show that it's not just credit scores, that banks are harsher on black candidates for loans. So we're not free from a lot of things that we haven't been free from for a long time. But we are free from bondage. So I do think that there's freedom on one level, but there is, of course, incarceration on many more. So I guess my short answer is that, yes, we are physically free, but in every other way, we are shackled. And it's probably that way for most demographics of people, because if you have a mortgage, you're not free. And white people have mortgages too, because they gotta go to work and pay them. So I don't know that there's anybody who's totally free, but in terms of the hierarchy of freedom, we're probably not close to the top.
I think
all homeowners matter. Sorry.
I think none of us are free, and the people that are closer to being free are the people that we malign, like the people that, for example, may not have a home. I sometimes think they're closer to freedom than those of us that are trapped either in a mortgage or trapped in rent. So none of us are really free. but that's why we do things like watch P-Valley to forget the fact that we are, to take us out of the situation of realizing that we don't really have freedoms. We're free to consume.
I mean, maybe it's not freedom we have. Maybe it's liberty we have. Like, we got a freedom, but it's in a confinement of it. Like, it's only a box that we can move freely in. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not freedom we have. Maybe it's liberty. Like, I remember me and my a very good friend of mine, and he feel like like, we'll make this joke. I said, I know you want to be free, my friend. And he was like, how you want me to be free? Me working inside of a cube because of the squares, because, you know, the cube is shaped like a square. I said, yeah, we are in a box, but the thing is, the door is open right there for you to get out that cube. But yeah. So I don't think it's freedom we have. I think it's liberties we have.
Yeah, I think that when we start talking about freedom again, you know, I always come back to this. We have to avoid doing the binary logic again in the resolutions, like either we're free or not. I think in some spaces you are free, and you're freer than you are in other spaces. And like even what what Trisha, you know, talks about constantly, like I think we probably would be if we can control the, you know, and manage the circumstances better. We probably could be freer in a different country. However, that comes with a certain amount of privilege, which comes with a certain amount of freedom too. And I always tell people, freedom can go a few different ways. Like it can mean you're free to be dumb. Are you free to be dumb? You know, can you free your dumb or your dome? Can you free your dome? And can you free the dumb? Like there's so many ways to be free. Like, and so I think that the times that we're not free and we don't feel free, I think the best thing to do is to be at peace with that. And then create opportunities for us to be free. Like, do you have a safe place where you go where you feel totally free? And I think that is the overriding thing that's going to lead to our, you know, our success in this country. It's like, do you have a place that you've created that you can actually go to feel as free as possible? And I don't know. I would say it's my home, you know, in certain, you know, and with certain, you know, certain people and family members, but that can be compartmentalized too, because I'm not free from, you know, paying rent. You know, I don't own my own home anymore. So there's certain freedoms I just don't have, you know, like can show up here and be like, time for you to get out. This is my land. It's my property. And that would really, really send a message that Negro, you are not free. You know what I mean? So it's like, I kind of want some of the features of like what, you know, Trisha said, like, you know, I kind of want some of the freedoms that like maybe a quote unquote, a person without a home or a homeless person would have, like they're able to just roam free and not have all these, you know, commitments and stuff. But, you know, some of those commitments, you know, help me feel more free. Like going to a job and earning money that if I know something happens that I can, you know, speak the language of this capitalist, you know what I'm saying, economy and, you know, buy my freedom, whether that might be bail. Maybe that might be, you know, moving to a better neighborhood where I can feel safer and I can feel freer. You know what I'm saying? And so I think Precious, you know, she kind of, you know, said something that was real powerful too. It's like, you know, freedom is your ability to use certain privileges that you have. And you're not able to use all your freedoms. I mean, all your privileges sometimes. And you're not able to exercise all your freedoms either. So it's like, I think that we, you know, you can't put all your freedoms in one basket and be like, well, I can't have them all. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm not really free. I don't know if that's the best way to live. I think that can be a little bit overwhelming and stressful. You know, what y'all think?
Hmm.
A lot of stuff in the comments. You know.
Uh-oh. No.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh no, we lost.
They got Precious. Oh my goodness. Panelists down.
She's not free.
We are not free. And Bobby's on.
I got this way.
She must have made too good of a point.
Yeah.
Hey, you're back.
Took her out.
I don't know what the hell happened. Like, what just happened?
You made too good of a point, Precious. The feds.
I guess they have to give me. The government
The feds watching.
They're about to give me for this.
Let's go to some of these comments so we can finish off with the Roe versus Wade. Aaron Bryan said filing bankruptcy is a form of freedom for the so-called financially oppressed. I don't know about that. I don't know. Maybe y'all can speak on that. I've never filed bankruptcy before. I don't know.
I don't know.
Not.
Credit score? That's not freedom.
No.
I don't know.
That's not how that works.
Especially since things like student loans are not forgivable.
Exactly.
So
that is the first thing that came to mind, and that's the biggest thing that I have to deal with is those damn student loans, and that's a form of financial slavery, man.
We slaves then. I don't know what to say.
Well, I guess I have a privilege and have a freedom because I don't have student loans. So maybe that's a privilege and freedom I have. I've been extremely blessed. I got my degrees without having to pay for anything.
That's awesome.
I've been extremely blessed and didn't have to pay for any of my degrees.
That's awesome. Divinity said, Trisha, I think that they're free.
They're free.
I think you're referring to homeless people.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what I may be wrong, but I think that's what you were referring to.
But I think you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Donald Trump is a whole terrorist, and he is touring the country doing rallies.
Would you say Donald Trump is free?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about in terms of with housing, and I was also just mentioning that people think they own their homes, but you don't really own your home at any point because you can lose it to taxes. I lost a house as a child to eminent domain and found out the government really owns your house and can take it at any time for any reason. So, and pay you what they want.
Is it worth buying a home?
Go ahead.
I'll go on. I'm sorry. It probably, in terms of, it's a way to generate wealth through equity and that kind of thing. But in the end, you have to realize that the government really owns your house as well. Well, first the bank owns it, and then you have the pleasure of paying the mortgage. And then at any time, the government really owns your house. So you have a responsibility to them. So you need to make sure you keep that responsibility. But I was in the interchange with Divinity, I was talking about I'm dealing with a relative that has an issue with schizophrenia and homelessness, and him feeling like I'm trying to enslave him because he's free when he's out and doesn't have responsibilities like everyone else. So in many respects, in trying to help him, I'm feeling more like I am more enslaved than he is, that he is in some respects freer than I am. And maybe that's at the moment, I'm probably not the most impartial person on that because of all the hoops that I'm going through legally pertaining to that. So
yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because Facebook user says freedom may be a state of mind. As soon as you said schizophrenia, that scares me. If I had schizophrenia, I would automatically, that would scare me, and I would feel like I'm not free to have control or management over my thoughts. Now, I don't know if that's how it works or not, but I've heard some stories from people like that's not a good experience. Like they don't feel free to think how they want to think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I need to interact more with people that are receiving help for it, because when they're not, it seems to me as if they feel as if they are free in that state and don't want to be controlled by the medication because that makes them feel different than enjoying, what did he say? Enjoying the second that he's in, because that's freedom, and just living in those seconds versus living in the future or the past, which I didn't understand, but maybe, yeah, that's how he was explaining it.
Yeah, I've heard those stories, and I've heard a lot of stories of people who use drugs like mushrooms and ayahuasca to escape that feeling of not being able to be in control or management of their thoughts, because they want to cure the so-called schizophrenia.
Right.
So they go to these extremes using DMT, ayahuasca, or whatever kind of mushrooms or drugs, because they're saying like it can cure schizophrenia. So,
oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, what you call it? Mike Tyson talks a lot about that. He talks about how he experiments with DMT and like frog venom and ayahuasca and mushrooms, because he feels like he has severe depression and it doesn't feel good. And I don't think he's ever diagnosed himself as schizophrenic, but I'm sure it's manic depressive, definitely. And he's saying he's like DMT and ayahuasca, it cures you, but I don't know. It sounds very scary. All of it sounds very scary. Like when you use those certain kind of drugs, they say you violently start throwing up. You got to have a person standing next to you to make sure that, you're not flipping out and tripping. It's like everyone has their own definition of freedom. That wouldn't be my definition of freedom, having to go to those lengths to feel like I have management over my thoughts. But let's get to the next topic real quick, because we got about 14 minutes. Can someone talk about this Roe versus Wade repeal, and what does it actually mean for the Black community? If someone can help break this down, and let's get into that.
I guess I'll just try and do it as quickly as possible. So if you look at abortions in the United States, you look at abortions in the Black community, and somebody here can come up with their own data, but I would just be willing to bet off top, because there's links to poverty. The American Southeast, which is where the majority of our Black population in the United States has a disproportionate amount of abortions, and access to those abortions have been difficult for Black women to actually to get to, literally geographically, to arrive at a place that will give them the ability to get an abortion. Roe versus Wade created laws as a part of a larger statutory scheme or legal scheme that made it so that states individually could be sued by the federal government and by other petitioners for the state failing to make abortion accessible to its citizens. So if you were in a place where there was a lot of Black women, and so we can talk about those places that exist, they're mostly in the American Southeast. Those are not easy places to get actual abortions. And so when we talk about who will be impacted, when doctors talk about ectopic pregnancy, I think is what it's called, the different forms of miscarriage, those things technically require an abortion to resolve and to make the woman healthy in the long run. So if Black women have miscarriages in these places where abortions were typically difficult to access, and the state had to be sued in order to make sure that those women could have access to it, and now Roe versus Wade is being repealed, now that state no longer has that duty to make an abortion accessible. So now the abortion clinics that might have already been 40 to 50 to 60 miles spread out, the state could virtually eliminate all of them. They don't have a right to be there. So the right to an abortion is no longer, or the right to access to an abortion is no longer something that exists in those states that can be enforced. It's gone. So if you're in Texas, rural part of Texas now, you cannot sue the state of Texas and say, hey, this is unreasonable that I have to drive 300 miles to get an abortion. Now they're saying, tough, you don't have a right to an abortion anyways, go find one somewhere else because it's illegal here. And if you do it here, you could face criminal penalties. So that's the easiest way for me to explain it. Hopefully that made sense.
Thanks for that. Does that mean that Plan B sales are probably going to go up now?
Perhaps, or because they already thinking about looking into removing those type of, I can never say that big C word, contraceptives. Did I say that right?
Now said it right.
Oh, good. Thank God. I always fail to say that word. But yeah, they plan on looking into trying to ban those as well. So yeah, they're saying that they're pulling some off the shelf, not necessarily because they want to remove it, but just that they know people may buy them in bulk. That it doesn't give people a chance to buy into it. So yeah, they're looking at trying to ban those as well, along with other birth controls and other areas. I don't know about condoms. I mean, I don't know about that. But
yeah, it's tough. Yeah. It just seems like people need to invest in, some safe contraceptives, that for real, you know what I mean? But what does it mean for the Black community, you think, this repeal in those certain, states where there's a high concentration of Black people, like the Southeast, like you said, like Texas, like Florida, blah, 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 that whole belt,
Well, I think Trisha can probably speak to this better than me because I know Trisha's aware of statistics on this stuff more than I am. But there will be an increase in the short run at a minimum of deaths in hospitals from Black women who couldn't get an abortion legally, didn't want to be charged criminally. So they went to the hospital, and if they're in a state where the doctors are fundamentalist and they don't necessarily take the Hippocratic Oath as serious as they do the law, then that person is likely to perish or suffer great bodily harm, as we say in the law, because if you have a fetus that's dead inside you, that's toxic, and you can die. So anybody who has a pregnancy that was really high risk now is at a much higher rate of risk for death from pregnancy. So that's my summation. Trisha or Precious might have a different view of it.
Oh yeah, it'll definitely put them at more risk because it's already bad enough Black women when it comes to pregnancy is already at a high risk prior to all this going down. So while this law, like I've always said, this law really ain't about Black women in particular. However, the fact that we caught in the middle of it, we're going to end up getting the short end of the stick, especially those who are not in the states of where abortion is allowed or it has like a cap on it. But luckily for us women in Texas, I know New Mexico and Colorado are still eligible. At least last I checked They made a change. I don't know if they changed the past couple of days. But yeah, it's definitely going to affect women very, very much so. And I don't want to get into the topic of how many Black women who are murdered, half of them being pregnant. So that makes it even worse. So I think I'm hearing some people coming up with I guess what they call an underground chain for women who are in those type of states. But I'm pretty sure they have to be very low key about it because we may run into some states who may want to not allow people come from out of states and do that. But that hadn't really been brought to the table to discuss as of yet. So it's getting ugly out there. That's all I can say. It's getting ugly.
Mm-hmm. What you think, Doc?
That's good. Divinity, I am pro contraception in all forms as often as possible. And as I understand, that's specifically also being targeted. I am also pro, I should not impose my views on other people's bodies. And that includes, how would I say? How do you say this without, I think either way, Black women are at risk. So like Precious was saying, more of us are that become pregnant are probably going to be killed one way or another when people make the decision that they don't want to have children, or they don't want the woman to have the child. So yeah, this is hard because, as Bobby was saying, the majority of us do live in southern states. So as wonderful and kind as it is that places like California and Washington, oh, you can just come here. How are they supposed to get there? People are pretending now that they'll help people fly there and all this. And we'll see what happens. And it's just the irony is that the women who probably are getting the majority of abortions that do that with their doctors that are not Black. So statistically, it looks like, oh, we're just running and getting abortions every minute versus there are ways to get an abortion from your doctor, from your gynecologist. And that's normally the way that people that are not Black do that. So yeah, it's interesting why he specifically wants more, I guess, Black and brown babies, unless they're using us for spare parts. I don't know. I don't, because they don't care about the kids once they're here. So if along with this abortion ban in certain states, if it's also followed up with strengthening child support laws and strengthening the fact that they will pay for the children that are born, as well as like formula, making sure all those things, all those supports for when kids are here, then there will be some benefit from it. But otherwise, yeah, as a woman, it's also weird to see all these men talking about this, and you're like, when's the last time you gave birth? When's the last time you were pregnant for 9 months? So yeah, it's yes.
As for me, I am unapologetically pro-choice. I've always been pro-choice since I was 18, and I'm 32, and I'm still more pro-choice than I ever was. What a woman decides to do with her body, it's not because I hate kids. It's just I know when to mind my damn business. What that woman decides to do or what she feels best for her, that's on her. I'm pretty sure I'm probably in a room with women who probably got it done. I have no idea. And guess what? It's none of my business. And Plan B is not an abortion pill. You have to take it within 24 to 72 hours after your last sexual encounter.
I left that comment because I thought that was a terrible comparison.
I would know that. You want to use it within 72 hours of your last sexual encounter. So, but that being said, it's not an abortion pill.
Yeah.
It's not. Granted, you shouldn't use it as a birth control because them damn pills like $50, $60 a pop, depending on where you get it at. So yeah, that's probably not a best route to use as birth control. You're better off going to a doctor and getting the pill that you can get prescribed to you at a way better rate. But that's just me.
Yeah.
That's just me. And for men to talk about this type of subject,
and also I respect, Keandre, what you're saying about use condoms, but back in the day, I'm sure it hasn't changed much, but I won't say most men. There's a certain subset of men that are resistant to using condoms, and they will use every reason about, oh, they're too small, oh, they work on me, it doesn't feel the same. So particularly if you have a teenage or someone in their early 20s, late teens, and they encounter such male in the wild, then it's very easy to convince them you don't need a condom. Because they're older.
I'm pro condom myself. Don't get me wrong. I prefer the condom over birth control, in my personal opinion. But I just don't think men should be commenting on that. But let me just say this though. For the women out here who co-signing this, or if you know, ladies, if you know any woman who is on board with this decision, you may want to cut them hoes off now. Because they are dangerous. That means they will jeopardize their own manhood, their own womanhood, I'm sorry, for something else.
That's not the point. Oh, it's not about that men shouldn't talk about topics that are unique to women. I think they should listen to women discussing these topics because it impacts their body. It's that men should not be taking the lead telling us either what the experience is like, what we should do. So that's not the got it I was looking for. I'm not saying you shouldn't talk about these topics, but let us participate in these discussions and particularly lead the discussions when it's talking about biologically what's going on in our bodies.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many places to go with this.
But I like the idea of use a condom. Please.
You know, and I don't, here we go again. I don't like the binary decision. Are you pro-choice or are you pro-life? I like your answer, Doc. Like, it's way more complicated than that. First of all, using condoms is way more complicated than that, because if you do the research, some women can't even use latex condoms because it messes up their pH and cause other problems, you know, biologically with them. So it's not just as simple as use a condom either. I think that when Black men, specifically, when we're talking about community building, and we saying, well, you get a little frustrated because, you know, it seems like you're getting barred from the, you know, the conversation. You gave that woman a gift with your semen. It's a wrap now. Now, if you have a loving, trustful relationship with her individually, and she'll allow you to be that conversation and say, you know, what's your involvement going to be and what we're going to do, and you guys can, then yeah, but it's a gift. It's a wrap, dude. If you don't want to worry about having the conversation or not having the conversation, then don't give it to her. I really do think it's that simple. It really is. Now there's accidents, but for the most part, cats are giving their semen away. And that's a bigger topic within Black men, because due to our post-traumatic slave syndrome and our trauma, right? We don't value ourselves. We don't. Because society has told us not to, that you just give it away and then argue about it later, what to do with the results. You know, I just think that's just backwards. You know what I mean? I don't, look, that's on you if she don't want to have a conversation with you after you already gave her a gift. That's on you. That's on you. That's on you. That's on you. I don't know. I don't know what to say other than I've been through it. You know what I'm saying? My oldest, that was not planned. But it was a gift. And in turn, she gave me a gift. My oldest son, I don't know what else to tell you. And I love that guy. We have a great relationship. But I tell you this, other than situations, you know what I'm saying, with my wife, those three, that's it. Now, I'm not trying to be biased or privileged and speak from top of a hill. I'm saying there's still options if you do give her that gift and you're not ready to raise that child. You know what I'm saying? But that's a conversation you have with her intimately, you know what I'm saying? And individually, I wouldn't say not with the whole community, unless we gonna build some kind of infrastructure and institutions to start taking care of people and their children after they have these children that they don't want, that they would have aborted and say, oh no, we got these institutions, we'll take care of them. We got this orphanage, we got this, that, and the third. You can give the child to us, you know? And I think that's the biggest thing. We always talk about pro-choice or pro-life, but we don't create circumstances, kind of alluding to what Doc was saying, that after the child was born, like, you know what I'm saying? What kind of circumstances are you creating to make that child's life successful? Because it looks like to me, when I hear these white people talking, they say it's a win for them because they're being genetically annihilated. It's a win for them. It's like, she literally said, what did she say? This is a win for white life or something like that. When she was, you know, that was telling. You know what I'm saying? But best believe, with the history that we have with the United States, with the overpopulation of Black people, they know exactly what to do with us. That's not a problem, us having more babies. That's never had a problem. They know exactly what to do with us. Put in his prisons, you know what I'm saying? Use us as slave labor with that 13th Amendment, you know what I'm saying? Make us, you know what I'm saying, work for them. You guys already knew I was going to take it there, so I don't know why you're looking like that, Bobby.
Hey, what? It's not for you. It's just the topic. The topic.
You guys are in that private chat, man. I can't multitask.
No, it's good.
The topic is just problematic. I've never liked this topic specifically because
Right.
It's difficult to engage in it in a way that's productive as a male because you really can't have a strong opinion on what somebody else should do. So if you put it in the context of, can you as a man force any woman to complete a pregnancy? If I just asked you that on its face, it's like, well, you can't even make somebody eat something they don't want to eat. So why would you make them go through something that is such a long thing in duration? But then on the flip side, I've always also thought that some of the rhetoric around it is so extreme that it's like delegitimizes itself. So like I'll see people say, I'm pro-choice up until 1 second before the child is born. And I'll be like, that sounds stupid to me, frankly, because you're acknowledging at that point, you're making the pro-life people's argument stronger because you're saying that I would be willing to give somebody the choice to just kill a child point blank. That's a child. Like, you're not going to tell me it's a fetus 1 second before it's born. Like, that hypothetical is terrible, right? So sometimes I just feel like people talk about it, like you said, in this binary way where it's this or that. And I don't ever think a topic this complicated is that simple. Like, and I could just say that from personal experience because my son, right, he's born at 29 weeks. And the first question that I asked Deanna was, this is because Roe versus Wade was happening around the same time. This whole discussion was, Deanna, did you feel like that was a fetus that was in your stomach? Or was that a child to you? What was it to you? Was that a person? Did you feel like you had a person inside you? Did you see it that way, or did you see it as something else? And she's like, well, we saw ultrasound after ultrasound. So she knew there was a heart, she knew there was a brain, and all of that stuff. So it's hard for me when I know that, just from my personal experience, to have a flat rule that says it's all choice all the time. Or by the same token, I also saw the ultrasound at like 14 weeks and I was like, that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. You can't convince me that that's a person. So for me, it comes down to, is it a person or not? So it's never just as simple as, is it the right thing to do, or is it a choice? I can never really come to a conclusion because I'm not going to be the one that has to carry out the pregnancy. But at the same time, I don't know if any one person should have the right to also terminate a life. I don't know that. So it's very confusing.
Yeah, that's a great point you made. See, this is where it gets tough, man. This is where it gets tough. Because if someone came to me and regulated and said that I have to, like let's say like China, you feel me? Mm-hmm. Like, after a certain amount of children, can't have no more children. Or at a certain age, as a man, I have to get a vasectomy.
Yeah, just cut off right there.
I'm like, hold on, dog. Like, look, man, I got these gifts inside of me. I might want to give them, you know what I mean? I got this gift, I might have a couple more in me. Or once you get to a certain age, I'm 47, no pun intended, they cut off the gift. No, bro, you can't do it no more. Why not? Well, because, we just look at the projections and the data logic, the likely age of a man, it's just not fair to the child. When a child is 20, you're going to be, 67. That's not cool. And how are you going to provide for that child? So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a vasectomy. And I'm like, dog, whoa, I got this gift still. I might want to use it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like, we get it when we're talking about, our bodies, you know what I'm saying? And our gifts, our semen, our penises and all that, but we don't get it when it's a woman's body. And that's why you have to understand then that, you're dealing with, I know it sounds hella corny, man. This is a Hallmark moment. It's a Black Hallmark moment. I know you're dealing with gifts. Like, human beings are gifts. And so if you're dealing with a woman and you truly value her, then if you're going to give her a gift, knowing that it could lead to an additional gift, then that should be always a part of how you're valuing each other. I know that sounds, silly, but well, then pull out, then, use contraceptives, whatever, if you're not going to value it to that level. And I say that because I've been there. You know what I mean? To the point where, got to get DNA tests, to prove that he's my son. So I've been there. I'm not speaking out of bias. I'm speaking from actual experience. And now he's 25 years old. Now, I'm not going to sit here and play with people and say, well, see, if she hadn't got an abortion, I wouldn't be having a relationship with my 25-year-old son. Who would want to, kill that opportunity? I'm not going to do that. Everybody has different experiences, you know what I'm saying, in this ecosystem of life. And that's a discussion for those two people to make, or that person to make. You know what I mean? I got another question. So, like, say there's like artificial insemination or something goes wrong where it didn't include a man. So is it cool to abort the child then?
I have no idea. Are you asking this question in response to something I said, or just general?
No, I'm just saying there's
I don't understand.
Like, not all pregnancies are going to go right. So is that considered an abortion since it was life ever since it had a brain and had a heartbeat and everything? Well, what if the life that was implanted in her didn't go right at some point? And I mean, what are we supposed to do? I mean, this is still a part of her body, and so it's a part of her health. Now, I read something in the comments. DeAndre said, I know 4 or 5 women who had, I know 4 or 5 women I know women who have had 4 or 5 abortions. That's just not good.
Okay. I'd like to add to that is
it's also not good for a man to have multiple baby mamas. It's also not good for a man to ask multiple women to have abort or demand that they have abortions. So I don't understand why for the woman to make that decision that she probably should look for birth control methods, but why does she have to carry this stigma continually versus and the reality of the fact that there are men with multiple baby mamas that probably did not plan on them. So like the two of them should both have that scarlet letter, not just her.
Well, in his defense, he said if a man has multiple kids in the care of the state, let's make him get a vasectomy. It's really,
but there's no law in place making a man do so.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, it's very interesting how this is an alignment and shares an intersection with Juneteenth, because that don't feel like freedom to me.
Because at the end of the day, I'm looking at the comment section. I'm gonna say it once again. What does that got to do with you?
Right.
What does that got to do with you? Nothing.
Why sleep with a man? Maybe because they don't share that information. Believe it or not, sometimes people lie when they want to.
Well, we can say the same thing about that post Carmelita had. A man didn't want to pay McDonald's for other kids that was there, but you affiliated with this woman.
Well,
and we're still blaming women. This is the interesting thing, no matter what. So we're still putting the onus on. She should inspect how many baby mamas he has before they have sex. She should, the decision with it's like just 50% accountability we're asked, or 50% responsibility, because accountability is taking 100%. So 50%, the two of them together, they can take responsibility together for this. And I mean, as a woman, I have been in a situation with my first ex-husband, let's say, and it's an ex-husband, of wanting to have a child consciously together while we're married, creating a child, and then him, I think it was like 3 months in, I'm not sure I want to do it. I'm like, that's not how this works. Dude, it's too late and too bad. And him being angry and salty about it. So believe it or not, there are, so that's why I'm on the fence with, it's the couple should decide, particularly the woman. You don't go back and say, well, after 3 months, I've changed my mind. I don't want to do. That's not how things work. Too bad. And was consciously trying to pressure me to make the other decision. And I'm like, but we did this on purpose. You said this is what we were going to do. Too bad. And later on with fighting in courts and things. But the thing is, it's always like the onus is back then on the woman. And that's why I'm conflicted with the decision, because on one hand, I'm thinking, well, maybe it'll force some men to be a little bit more responsible about, okay, the X and A plus B happens, and therefore a child could be created. But then I know that the ones that are irresponsible, they're still going to be irresponsible. They're still going to be, go and have another decision. And my youngest son with my second ex-husband, he was born and I had an IUD at the time. Happy to have him, wonderful, but he was born with the IUD. So you can't say all contraceptive is not 100%. Yeah, we weren't using condoms, but I had an IUD, but yeah, I became pregnant. So there, for other women, maybe someone else would have made another decision because of thinking, well, I initially planned on not having a child, plus there are dangers with having a child with an IUD. So therefore I need to make another decision. Who am I to, decide that other people should make other decisions? But I really wish we would get away from this, no matter what, blaming the woman, throwing more, she should do this, she should do, come on, just 50%. No one's saying that men are 100% wrong or whatever, but just 50-50.
I think, and that's a good speech. That's a good speech. You brought up a lot of things. And I want to say before we get on, I think I want to encourage everybody to do their research on all the different kinds of birth control, because even latex condoms, I'm telling you, especially with Black women, there are high incidents of them having problems with latex condoms, all that, fibroids, IUDs. Don't even get me started on birth control. I encourage y'all to do the research on how birth control can be really harmful to Black women. And so I think that a lot of times what Doc is saying is like, in this male-dominated patriarchal, society, we often get, have temper tantrums when we don't get to make the last decision. It's like you don't always get to make the final decision in all your unions that you have. And I think there's some alignment and some intersection between whether you have a baby or not, and that it may restrict your freedom. Going back to our first topic with Juneteenth, I think a lot of people see a restriction and a lack of freedom that comes with deciding to have that child for whatever reason. I'll be interested to look at the data of why you don't want to have that child. Why?
Exactly.
Why? I'm not saying you're right or wrong, but I want to see the data. Is it because it's going to restrict your financial freedom? Is it going to restrict your romantic freedom? Because now you, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, stuck with this person. You can't go out and, do other things because, there's expectations. Like, what freedoms are in jeopardy when you are having this child? Why don't you want to do it? Why?
And that's the one thing I've noticed about this. They tell that women having too many abortions. I say, have you ever thought to ask her why she having one in the first place? Ask her why she getting it.
Sometimes because she knew that Negro wasn't going to be there.
Yeah.
and there is that. That would be shit. That would be my reasoning. I never got one done or being pregnant, but that damn sure would be my reason of getting one. And you damn straight I'll go to that clinic and get it done.
Yeah. And then someone could say, well, she needs to choose better partners, and so should he. Stop giving your gift to people. Why are you giving your gift to people? Stop giving,
And I will also say, when men say, I hear men, I'm not talking about you, I hear other men say, just so men know, women can't get pregnant by themselves, and you as a man got the first call of what that happens to that seed. She just, like you said, she got the final call. She has the final call what she want to do with it. She can keep it or she can get rid of it.
I don't think a lot of people like that. Dominique said, no blame. I'm just asking in general. And I was responsible to wear condoms because I knew that what would happen if I didn't. No, y'all were both responsible to wear a condom, but you chose to wear one on you.
And there are female condoms, by the way. There are female condoms.
Yes, there's so many different ways you can do these. You feel me? No, you weren't the one who was just responsible. See, that's what I'm saying. You weren't. You know what I'm saying? But the reality of it is we don't value that union and that interaction enough to even have that conversation. What kind of contraceptive are we going to use? Are you allergic to latex? This is that and the third, blah, blah, blah. Do you even have a vasectomy? Blah, blah, blah. And we be thinking that, having a baby is the worst that can come out of this situation.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I just, oh man, this seemed like
scary.
What's this about? What's this topic about right here?
Oh, consensual sex now?
Women control access to consensual sex. I'm sorry. I don't know.
He's trying
I
to
think
make
you both should. That's something you should both agree on.
right.
Yeah, no, I think both parties can control the both of that, okay?
Yes, and you can, despite, I think there was a politician once that said that you couldn't get pregnant if you were raped. That's not true. You can. I mean, probably half of us wouldn't be here from enslavement if it wasn't possible to have children from rape. So that's not true.
Yeah, I think what he was trying to say is that that's not sex, and that he will be correct by saying that rape isn't sex, but people definitely get pregnant from being raped. Like,
I don't think that was his point at all.
Okay. I'm giving him too much.
Oh, what was the point then?
I think that the point he was making was, and you can agree that or disagree that this is a reason for the share of responsibility, but I think what he was saying is that men don't actually accelerate or start a situation. He's saying that it's the consent that is the first act, not the sharing of the semen. I think that's the argument that he's making. So does it change anything? It does not. I think it's just a point that he was making.
Okay.
As one not subject to this quote gift, I'm so blessed. I thank whatever gods may or may not be for the lack of a womb. This is awful. I wouldn't trade places with cis women for anything.
Oh, gee.
Jesus. Okay, well, say that then. All right. And servant Christopher, he's getting busy. Why?
Yeah, and apparently you didn't. I was married.
Here's my question.
Marriage does not make in that respect. Yeah, it makes a difference in terms of in theory that they should take care of the children afterwards. But believe it or not, even some of us that were married and divorced, we don't get things like child support, but it still happens. Again, if a person is not the greatest as a single person, they probably aren't going to be a great person married either. So also there's no guarantee.
They're probably going to be worse.
Right. That's true.
Then you committed to some
like
BS.
They lost their freedom.
Exactly. See. I think whether people have children or not, seriously, comes down to what freedoms do they think they're achieving and what freedoms that they feel like they're going to be restricted from. That was my biggest reasons of always wanting to have children. I want to live more than once while I'm on this planet. Like, I want my name, and that gives me a different kind of freedom. I want people to have my back. Shit, you know what I'm saying? So
versus my first ex-husband, he literally said after we broke up and everything, and he came to visit our son, he was like, I can't wait till we can go to clubs together when he's in his 20s. I'm like, that's not why you have and I was like, wait a minute, is that why you had? Yeah, we can go to clubs and he can, and that's not why. So again, single person who married, and I was young, thought that marriage will change him. He'll become more responsible. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does, but not. Like I said, it can make it worse because now you feel like you're trapped in a relationship.
Majority of the time, it doesn't work out that way.
Right.
He wanted to go to the club. That's the reason why he didn't want to have children.
Maybe that is the because he went back to the club after we.
Yeah. No, I've heard people say they don't want children because they like to pick up and go travel whenever they want. Yeah.
To me, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's unreasonable. I mean, I like to pick up and leave too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
I want to have fun.
I think some people fell into the notion that if you force somebody to have kids, it'll make them grow up. And I find that a cock of BS too. Like, some people think because they have kids, it may I've heard people say that, having a kid made me grow up. Damn, it took a whole kid to make you do that?
No.
Damn.
That is true for some people, though. It does put things in perspective that life is bigger than just you. It does.
Or they want to sit there and play with their toys. No, don't believe that. I can tell you. They're like, yay! I've always wanted to play with it.
I've actually heard that from many Black men and women.
I heard it too.
That it changed their life. No, they became way more mature. They wanted to put things in perspective because they were being selfish and they knew that they had a life to take care of other than them. It put everything in perspective for them. So, but that was a choice that they made, though. It wasn't like what y'all are saying, like someone forced them, like, this is your right passage. You got to do it. Like, no, chose to have this this child, because not a kid, it's not a goat, because I feel like it's going to give me perspective, you know what I'm saying, on life. Carmelita said, men should have an opinion on whether or not a woman has an abortion only when he is the father of fetus, unborn child, and even with limitations. Thanks for the tag, Bobby. Great discussion. Peace.
I think she meant to say should not have an opinion. I mean, I ain't trying to speak for her, but I think she meant they should not have an opinion.
Oh, maybe
she meant exactly what she said. I'm pretty sure.
No, I know, but I don't know from her previous posts and this, because she said only when he is the father of the fetus, unborn child. So I'm thinking she did a mistype.
Got you. Okay, maybe so.
I'm gonna look at the second sentence of it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much stuff going on in these comments, but we're gonna have to revisit these comments. Hey, let's we've been going for a minute. This has been a great seed talk. You know, we might have to do a part 2 on this and everything, but what's the plan of action on both these topics when we talk about, you know, what's next for, you know, for Juneteenth, and when we talk about, you know, the Roe versus Wade, you know, repeal, like, what does it mean? What's the plan of action?
I guess for me, I'll just start off by saying that I don't have too much to say about the Juneteenth topic, because next June we'll end up having the same discussion. I truly believe that it's a good thing that it's now within the consciousness of the rest of America. I think that's a positive. Whether it results in Black people being treated better is a completely different question. So I think that's all I can really say about that. But with respect to Roe versus Wade, I want to draw a super hard line in the sand between my personal beliefs about the topic in Roe versus Wade, because those two things can be different. And I think that a lot of times we've reached a point in public discourse where someone will say, well, if you take this position, then we know all your other beliefs. And that's just not true. Because like for me, like I said, I'm personally conflicted about whether abortion as whether it's a legitimate form of birth control. I'm conflicted about that, but I'm not conflicted about whether or not access to an abortion should be available, because like what we know from medical science is that so many people die in pregnancy that it's irresponsible, in my opinion, for states to just be able to not offer that as a service to people who are at risk of dying from pregnancy. Not providing that is irresponsible. So I think that even if it's not Roe versus Wade, I hope that something happens at a state-by-state level to protect people who are pregnant, and particularly ones that are at risk of being harmed by a pregnancy. I think that that's a high priority, and it needs to be addressed, and that, you know, anybody who thinks that their moral compass is more important than the physical, you know, survival of somebody, I have questions about that, because that's personal. That's your personal beliefs now costing somebody their life. So I have questions for those people. And I think that you should be able to have questions about things like this and not have the strongest opinion on earth, because it's complicated. But you should also be able to recognize the necessity that some people have for this service, even if morally you don't agree with it, because they're two different things. Your personal beliefs and the consequences for people in the real world are two different things. And if people realize that, not just on abortion, but on so many issues in this country, when we talk about law enforcement, for example, people will say, I feel this way or that way about the police. And then we look at the numbers and see people who are, you know, 3 times more likely to die in an interaction with law enforcement. That's not your opinion, that's reality. And I think that this is a topic just like that. Black women are going to be disproportionately affected by this. And so even if, like I was saying, you struggle with it on a personal level, understand that this is absolutely something that if we don't provide, more Black women are going to die from. And that is a tragedy, and that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I'll go next just to piggyback off what you said. Like every time something happens, you know, through law, you know what I'm saying, or legislation or whatever, we're always impacted the most. Whether if it was, you know what I'm saying, Roe versus Wade was, not repealed. I think we're always, because the circumstances for our oppression and how we're marginalized has not changed. And I say that for people who want to, judge or throw shame or have their opinion of whether a person should have an abortion or not, instead, I want to ask them, like, what are you doing to make sure that there's safe places and really ideal conditions for that child to be living? And I say that because I'm an educator and I see a lot of, children who were not aborted, and how we don't create those safe places and those conditions for those children to be safe. You know what I'm saying? And I just think that it's pretty clumsy. You know what I'm saying? No, have the child, when you're not doing anything to volunteer, you're not putting any resources in it. And the first person I think about is like Kanye West or Angela Stanton. It's like, Kanye will be like, well, abortion is, it's like genocide, and I'm like, see, this is the reason why he shouldn't be respected as a genius when it comes as a scholar. This is the reason why, with these clumsy, and it's just like, you ain't taking care of these children when they're born. You're not in the schools. Like, if you really want to help these children, just start small. If you want people to have children, start with your city in Chicago. Go around to all those parents and those people, and those women not to have children, but make sure you cleaning up those neighborhoods in which they're born into in Chicago. And, you're a billionaire, you got certain freedoms, when it comes to resources that people don't. So I just think that, number one, we should create those conditions, for, children to be born into and be willing to do some community building. Actually, Precious, it actually brings up the topic of, that y'all were talking about earlier about the dad who brought, food for his biological children, but not for the children that aren't his, quote unquote, like, we can't even get past that hurdle. Like, that stumps us. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we can't even get past that. Like, we can't even buy food for another child that's not ours. And that becomes a huge debate. Are we really willing to tell people not to have abortions when we can't even figure out if we should give them McDonald's or not? I think it's just super duper crazy. And I think that we can be doing a lot more in our community to value each other and not make it so limited to whether a person has an abortion or not. It should be like, how do we value each other while we're living? And I think we could do a better job with that. And then the last thing I say is, ask yourself, what freedoms are you, scared of, losing or gaining when it comes to whether you should have a child or not? I think that's a question. And men, another one, stop giving your gift away, man, if you don't want to deal with the present. That's all kinds of puns and double entendres on that one too. So I can go next.
Are you going, Doc?
Doc, go
I'll go because I'm sure mine is all over the place. In terms of Roe versus Wade, it's hard for me to assess getting on board with how people are reacting, because most of the time people don't really care about Black women. And now all of a sudden we're being used constantly in the argument of, oh, this protects Black women, they're going to be impacted by it. Since when in the history of the world or the history of us being here, no one's ever stunned about or worried about us. But now all of a sudden everyone's worried about our health and our access to. So then I know that it's really about the other people because we're being used as an example. And this calls to mind, like, there was this supposed white ally who used the N-word talking about Clarence Thomas and his decision about that. And I saw that and I'm like, she's supposed to be, yeah, because doesn't he realize this N-word that they're coming after him too? They're taking my rights to have abortion. And I'm like, wait a minute. So that gave me a little pause, that also knowing that this country doesn't want to see more unambiguously Black people that look like me being born, because, or my other son, because these are the ones that are being aborted in the Southeast. So what is this southeastern part, southern part of the United States. So what is it really about? And of course, it's about, creating more desirable, adoptable white children, or I guess, adopting Black kids seems to be popular right now for some people. So creating an endless supply of babies for middle class and above white people to adopt. So I don't, it's hard. It's difficult hearing all this saccharine concern for Black women. And conversely, of course, because we die in childbirth at a higher rate than other people. So maybe that's also we're most likely in sex trafficking in the United States. So it's like, are people really concerned about what happens to us? I find it hard to believe. So I don't know how to feel with Roe versus Wade, but I do know that I would like to encourage people to seek out other types of birth control first. Also, and it's terrible that sometimes, when you're younger or you're a teenage girl or preteen, and they used to tell you to take birth control for like acne and skin, regardless, to try and, I hate to say as soon as possible, but with younger Black girls, make sure that they're on some sort of birth control. No, it doesn't mean they're fast and it's not going to make them a whore and all that, but to make sure they're on something as soon as possible, even unfortunately in the event that they're being molested or raped or something, that you don't want to force them, if they become pregnant, to and they can't get to one of these freedom states or whatever, or states that they allow abortions. So I guess that's a plan of action, to make sure as many types of birth control and contraceptives are available to Black girls while they're developing, of all sexual identities, because I know, unfortunately, that some Black girls that do not identify with being female, they are sometimes raped by men trying to force them to make other decisions. In terms of Juneteenth, I encourage us to do things that aren't necessarily commercial, but that recognize and acknowledge our ancestors and honor them in terms of what we're contributing to one another for our future, because it's going to unfortunately become commercialized soon. I know we got away with stopping Walmart with the ice cream thing this year, but it's not going to last forever. They'll come up with something next year and the year after that. So let's try and get ahead of it and make sure that we're doing something for us.
Well said. Well said. What you think, Precious? Batting cleanup.
The last point you did, Trisha, that kind of made me cringe. Like, God damn, putting these young girls on birth control already. I'm like, God, great goodness. I'm glad my mom didn't do that mess to me. But anyways, hold on.
Sorry to bother you. Didn't know you were in the middle of something else.
No, I don't. That's someone who walked by.
I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, people don't want to buy no strawberry cream pies. Okay. Anyway, for the Juneteenth, I don't have much to say about that. I think the turnout for this year, for 1 year, and we're turning now 1 year that's been through, I think it's went pretty good. I think another thing I know people talked about this is that a lot of them were investing in Black-owned businesses and stuff, so they were doing a lot of that. So I think we could also continue to do, granted, we should be doing that all year long anyway, but I think we also should use that day for community embracing at that time, because I know there was some cookouts I heard around Austin and Kyle and Pflugerville. I wish I was able to attend, but unfortunately I couldn't go, but next year I got them. As for the Roe versus Wade, I'm having a hard time saying it too. This is one of those situations people have to look past their own personal beliefs and look at what's best for the collective. Because and based off that collective, I'm talking about what is good for that individual for whatever circumstances that they are in. I find it very clumsy. Like, there's many things in life that I'm not personally a fan of, but I never thought to push my beliefs on other people to prevent them to not do or not do something, even if it go against my core value. Technically, this ain't what this country's supposed to be about. So for us to pull this type of stunt is asinine, in my personal opinion. And as Trisha said, really ain't really about us. And I don't know, a lot of people may disagree with me on this, but I never believed that Black women were getting the abortions the most. That never looked the same, because I looked at it like this: if that were really the case, there would be an abortion clinic in every CVS, a Walgreens, a Walmart, Target, all the area that's predominantly Black, and you could push a damn button and somebody come out here and you could just walk in and get it done. I ain't never seen that shit happen before. So that's why I said, I'm not saying that's not Black women who are getting it done. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that this law, I don't think it's really trying to save Black babies. They never gave a damn about Black babies. I'll take a step first. They never gave a damn about the kids, period. It's all about sustaining a particular ideology or a particular group of people, and we already know what that group of people is. So with that being said, yes, for women who are truly affected by this, I think they should look into ways to protect themselves, whether it's through different types of contraceptives. I finally got it again. If they're able to now, because they trying to do something with that too, or even through abstinence could work, or celibacy could also. I know a lot of women say, I don't want to do that. Trust me, it's not a bad trip. I'm just saying, it ain't a bad idea at all. It's actually pretty, to me, it's great. But other than that, I think we also need to be aware that this actually could be a gateway to other things that may come down the pipeline. Because I'm not sure if I think that was part of it as well, that the police don't no longer have to give you the Miranda rights anymore when arresting you. That also, it kind of slid that one in, or something of the Miranda rights. They no longer have to say it to you, or if they don't say it to you, you still will be punished for whatever. So yeah, they slip in a couple things, but a lot of people been focused on this Roe versus Wade.
Gotcha. Don't be distracted, is what you're saying.
Yeah, don't be too distracted, because they slip a couple things in that I actually called and shared on my page. So I say, y'all jokers better stop paying attention.
Yep. All right, y'all. It's been another great C Talk. It's been great. We'll see if Fresh is in. And Trisha gonna do the after C Talk. I'll be listening and whatnot.
You want to? Let's do it.
Oh yeah, we could get down for it.
Make sure that y'all are getting into the comments and whatnot. And
Benedict got it for me. She got it for me. Yes, they can't be sued for not Mirandizing, whatever it's called.
Mirandizing.
Yeah, Mirandizing, whatever it is. That's what it was.
Wow.
That's what it was. They slid up right behind it. But it couldn't get slapped past Precious P. I look at everything.
So make sure you all are commenting and sharing this podcast, and y'all stay tuned. We, like we said, we like to be out here once a week. You know what I'm saying? We chose a Tuesday today, but keep sharing this, keep commenting, get those algorithms going. We love y'all. C Talk, we out.